All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So the regular season is over. 2023, it's a wrap. It seems like everybody, not only just fans, but the organization, everybody is totally focused on 2024. It seems like the Jets have been focused on 2024 for half of this season, pretty much since really the Rodgers injury. But Joe Douglas spoke today as far as, the timing of filming this pod. Saleh spoke today. We had the exit meetings. Rodgers had some comments. Tyson, what's going on, man? How are you? Obviously, the Jets beat the Patriots, finishing 7-10 on the season, same record as last year. Where's kind of your mindset when it comes to this football team?
Well, good to talk to you, man. It's been a little while. I think I'm frustrated, dude. I'm frustrated because you hear from your front office, you hear from your head coach. Now that the season's over and you can stop lying to us, you kind of want to hear accountability. You want to see things. But before we get started, I have an interesting question for you. The Jets beat the Patriots. They treated the game yesterday like a Super Bowl. They were all in trying to beat Belichick and run the score up and everything else. What were your thoughts on Breece Hall getting 37 carries yesterday?
On one hand, I'm pumped that Breece Hall was able to handle it. But from a coaching perspective, from a management perspective, from literally a common sense perspective, I wasn't a fan. You're talking about a guy who, is literally, I mean, he literally had a lower body injury last year. You're playing in a ton of snow.
Yeah.
It's the last game of the season. You don't want to, I don't want to come across as pessimistic or anything like that, but you don't want to risk an injury. 37 carries is a ton. And granted, Hall, he carried the Jets to victory, had the one touchdown run late in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
I felt like he looked awesome. But the usage rate, it was a little high for me personally. It just kind of seemed like Hackett's game plan going in was just give Breece the ball. That literally was it. But as far as just Breece as a player, could not be happier. I thought he handled the workload totally well. That's literally some of the you don't act like Derrick Henry, the top running backs in football, they aren't carrying it that much. But Breece Hall, he did his thing.
Yeah, no, listen, I love Breece, dude, and it's exciting to see the ability, the potential he has, all that stuff. But it's all right, it's the last game of the season, meaningless game in the snow. He has 100 yards right at that point. Dude, take him out of the game, man. You're not proving anything. We already know how great he is, but get Izzy the ball, change it up a little bit, because the last thing you want is for him, for God forbid, to get hurt in a meaningless game on his 32nd carry, 35th carry. Even the last play of the game, you're like, what are you doing, man? I know you want to try to get him to 1,000 yards, but they have a math problem apparently in the Jets. They can't figure out how to count, 1 to 100 on the Jets. But I was surprised they had him, carry the ball that many times. But that's this staff. Common sense just doesn't really apply to them most times. But I'm glad the season's over, dude. And then the press conferences today, we've talked about this where Saleh spoke, and you're like, you know what? Somebody's going to be a scapegoat. Somebody's going to be held accountable. When you have one of the worst offenses in football, somebody has to go, right? You have to. It's not going to be Hackett. He's best friends with Rodgers. Everybody loves him. They want to keep changing coordinators. But we're like, you know what? Carter, Downing, one of them, if not both of them, are going to go. And lo and behold, they're not, dude. And I'm shocked. I'm appalled. And I just don't understand, dude. When you want to preach accountability to your organization, to your players, you bench guys if they don't play well. Your offense wasn't good, especially your offensive line, and nothing is changing.
Well, on top of that, Saleh kind of doubled down and said that Keith Carter was really good this year.
Yeah.
And I understand it. The Jets had injuries on the offensive line, but still,
bro, can we
you gotta
hold on? Time out. Dude, injuries on the offensive line. Do you see how many injuries the Dolphins had? How many injuries the Cleveland Browns have had? How many productive offenses had injuries on their offensive line and still were able to do it? That's my problem.
And that's my point, is every team has, every team has injuries. Every team has some question marks on offense, right? So, again, I understand that we have injuries there, a tackle, left side, right side, guard, whatever. I understand that there's adversity, but at the same time, this is the National Football League. You have to be prepared, especially if you walk around calling yourself win now. We're shooting for this, we're shooting for that divisional crown, all these different things. It's one thing if if you're Arizona or Washington, it's a little bit of a different story. Carolina, but man, just And look, I mean, this goes back to what we've really been saying since week one, really since last offseason, which was, just where's the depth? Where's the depth of this football team? We're putting a lot of, a lot of stock in guys like Mekhi Becton and Dwayne Brown. These guys get hurt, and all of a sudden we're looking around the room just saying, man, who's starting? Who's going to back him up? Who's going to be playing left tackle this week? We also have to figure out who's going to be playing right guard and right tackle. What about center? All these different problems, all these different things. But yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm glad that 2023 is done and over with, but I'm with you. I'm shocked that everybody is staying. I mean, they were quick to fire Mike LaFleur last year. Like, boom, we have to get somebody out. Mike LaFleur, see ya.
Yep.
But, I don't know if it's the Aaron Rodgers thing or what, but it definitely seems like something weird is going on.
Yep.
I mean, we've talked about Buffalo on the pod before, firing Dorsey. If they didn't settle for a top 10 offense, we have one of the worst. I think it was like the 31st in total offense, and everybody is staying. I mean, that's it's concerning, man. It's alarming. My hope at this point is that we add somebody to the room, like an offensive consultant or something like that. Maybe one of these guys that just got fired. Bringing, I don't throw out whoever name you want, Kellen Moore, Arthur Smith, any one of these guys, Frank Reich. Just can you come in again as a consultant, third party, look at the offense, what went well, what didn't, what you would do differently. And he has no ties to the Jets. He's not afraid to hurt anybody's feelings or egos. Exactly. But I think that's the responsible thing that a $1 billion NFL franchise should do. I mean, we are putting up like horrendous numbers. Can't throw, can't run, can't protect, injuries, penalties, no depth, bad quarterback play, frustrated young players. I personally think it would be a really good idea to just bring somebody in not associated with the team and kind of look at everything and be in the same room with Salah and say, hey, what was going on here? This is not working. This cannot happen next season. Or vice versa. This is a real strong suit of the football team. You guys got to lean into this more. So obviously, a consultant doesn't have every answer in the book, but it would just give the Jets somebody, it would give them an outsider's perspective, somebody just to come in and look at the offense from a different angle.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. Because right now it's coming off like they're very complacent, and I hate that. Like that's their culture, dude. Like you keep talking about where it's like they're justifying losses, they're justifying excuses. It's like, well, woe is me. But you face adversity and they melt, and that's what their culture is. Like the all gas no break. It doesn't really apply to the Jets because they're not really holding anybody accountable, and that's where the players got to see that in the locker room too. Man. Like, they're not changing anything. Like this is acceptable here, being one of the worst in football. Like it's weird. And then you touched on it earlier, and Garrett Wilson's comments today are the most telling thing that anybody said all day today, where he's like, during the game, we're not making adjustments. He goes, I watch the other teams. It looks easy for them. Why isn't it easy for us? How many times have we talked about this season, dude? We talked about it literally. Why is a 3rd and 5 play look like it's a friggin' miracle to get where other teams are going up and down the field, without any kind of problems? And Garrett Wilson saying that. So look at him when he says that. And you tell him to his face, you know what? We understand you're frustrated, but we're going to fix this in-house. Don't worry about it. Everybody's coming back. Dude, it just rubs me the wrong way, man. It sends the wrong message. You look at the Giants today. The Giants fired all kinds of people. Martindale's out, special teams guys out, outside linebacker guys out. The O-line coach is out, which you know why? Because they were struggling. What did our O-line do? And you hear the excuses. Well, it's injuries, it's the cadence, it's the communication, all these things. A lot of things are coaching, dude. It's literally coaching related. And the Jets are they're almost arrogant about this now. And listen, they could be this time next year, we could make it a playoff run. Like, they were right. But you get that feeling that they're not right and they're not handling it correctly.
Well, I think, you make a great point. They could be right. And Keith Carter could be amazing. And Todd Downing could be amazing. And it is just the injuries that, and the miscommunications and all these different things. That could be the case.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's like what Douglas has been here for 5 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Salah's been here for 3. We haven't been 500 since either has taken over. Mm-hmm. We have not gotten to 8 wins. Mm-hmm. Shane Steichen has 8 wins. D'Amico Ryans is going to the playoffs, has 8+ wins.
Yep.
You can look across the NF or the AFC, the NFL. I mean, there's younger teams that have lapped the Jets that have
Yep.
started their rebuilding process after the Jets have started theirs
Yep.
and have already seemingly seemed further ahead in the process.
Yep.
How
Yep.
does that happen? Because it's not like the Jets are like, we got 90 million in space, we're good, we're not going to sign anybody. It's not like they are taking over tons of bad contracts all over the place. There's really one, and it's CJ Mosley. And CJ Mosley is a great player. He's a
Yep.
veteran leader and
Yep.
is still producing at a really high level, and the players love him. And the coaches love him too. But we're not in a position where we have, 3-4 contracts just holding the team back, and we are so constricted. It's not like we haven't had draft classes infused in the team.
Yep.
I think I'm counting 6 to 7 first round picks
Yep.
since Douglas has taken over. Becton, Wilson, AVT, Sauce, Jermaine Johnson, Garrett Wilson, and Will McDonald. That's 7 first round picks, 7 first rounders in however many 4 classes.
Yep.
I mean, how many GMs can go out and say that they've had 7 first round picks in that short of time? Not
Yeah.
many. We should be further along in the process. So I think it's totally fair to question what's in place, because we just don't have. It'd be one thing if because look, McCagnon and Todd Bowles had the 10-win season
Yep.
first year up, and yes, they inherited some good players and whatnot, but they still they actually went out and produced. They had some results, 10 wins,
Yep.
barely missed the playoffs. As that regime kind of went on, they can point to that season and say, well, hold on, like we do have something here.
Yep.
We have good players, we have good culture, like give us some time. But with this regime, it just seems like it's all talk and hope.
Yep.
And if you're trying to constantly sell fans, sell players on, this is what we're going to be, this is what we're going to do, but then the time comes and then it doesn't happen, and then you say it again and it doesn't happen, and then you say it again and it doesn't happen, that's when, in my opinion, it's fair to question, well, hold on, do we have the right decision makers in place?
Well, and that's the thing. Like the Jets are very good at cherry picking certain things to kind of like make them come off really well. Like they capitalize on winning meaningless games at the end of the season. Be like, oh, we won 3 of our last 5. You won meaningless games, man. Then Sal's thing was we beat 3 playoff teams. You also lost to Arthur Smith. You lost to Brandon Staley. You lost to an interim head coach. Like, you know what I mean? Like for every like little positive you want to sell me, I can give you 3 negatives I think you did wrong. So stop telling me everything like we're close. I'm tired of hearing how close you are, because you're not close. You're not in the playoffs. The end of December, you're out of it again, right? They were close last year. They lost 6 in a row end of the season. Like a lot of things, like they're trying to sell us this picture, but when you look at the artwork, it's not there. Like they have, it's just, and a lot of it to me is coaching. And then the thing with Joe Douglas today, which I think the media let him off, dude, because there's more pointed questions you could have asked him. But the most important one was, why was Zach Wilson number 2 quarterback? So he started out by saying he was having a very good training camp. Then as the press conference went on, he's like, well, you know what? The whole goal was for him to watch this year. We wanted him to watch Aaron Rodgers in action. We didn't want him to play. Well, guess what, dude? If you didn't want him to play, you have somebody in between him and Aaron Rodgers, so he's not going to play. You guarantee that's going to happen. You don't sign Tim Boyle, who's horrendous. But then it was like, all right, the next question should have been, you didn't want him to play. Week 1, you knew he's going to be playing, right? Aaron Rodgers gets hurt 4 plays in. Now you know the guy you don't want to play is going to be playing. So how do you handle adversity, Joe Douglas? He didn't. He melted. He doubled down his mistake, and he didn't own it, dude. And that's the biggest problem I have with all this. It's like they give you the answer you want, but then you see how incompetent they are because you see the mistakes they made. And it's just, it drives you crazy, dude, because it could have all been avoided. We talked about this over and over and over. Don't want to be the dead horse, but Joe Douglas made a lot of mistakes. Dwayne Brown, Zach Wilson, the offensive line, all different things he did. And that's why they are where they are. And the thing he said he's bothered by is how the team didn't handle adversity. That's on him, dude. The team, yes. You're the point man. You're the guy making the decisions. You're the guy that says, you know what? We got to make whatever. We got to get a quarterback. We got to get offensive linemen. Be at the trade deadline. Do whatever it has to do. Or you could tell your head coach, listen, man, this coaching staff ain't working. You got to make a change because your offensive line can't block anybody. Like, he said the right things today, but it's too little too late for me. Like, this could have been done throughout the season.
Yeah, and that's the thing, it keeps coming back to Douglas and Saleh being here for years.
Mm-hmm.
Look, if this was year 1,
Yep.
I'd be like, okay, understandable. They haven't really installed their culture. They haven't really added players. They haven't really signed free agents. They haven't really drafted players. First crack at everything, just like we were back in year one with Saleh. And this was coming after Joe Douglas was already in house when he decided to keep Gase
Yep.
that second year. And it was just like a weird. I mean,
Yep.
everybody kind of was just like, man, what is going on? Weird decision.
Yep.
But again, I think that's what it keeps coming back to. And in regards to Douglas saying that the Jets are close, he's like, we have good players on this roster. It's like, on one hand, yeah, we do. Sauce, Garrett Wilson, like we go down the list, we do have some really good players. Quincy,
Yep.
Quinn, and CJ.
Yep.
But then on the other, you can say, well, we better have good players. You've been here for years.
Exactly.
Like, again, like if he was here for one season, 2 seasons, it would be a different story.
Yep.
But the fact that it's draft class after draft class after draft class, like this is the roster that both Douglas and Saleh have constructed.
Yep.
These are the guys that they want out there. There's no more. We have to keep playing him because of a bad contract because of McCagnon who didn't work out.
Yep.
Or this guy's on a long-term deal, so might as well play him, or whatever the case is. We're not in that position. Every single player here, outside, I mean, Quinnen was a McCagnon guy as well, but he's obviously dominant. Outside of Quinnen and Mosley, I can't really think of any other pieces that come to mind that were like McCagnon guys that are just here and there's nothing that the Jets can do. So these are the players that this regime has brought in and that they identified as the guys. So, I guess we can say we're close and, I guess we can say we have good players, but, we should have these good players. And then another thing too, if you want to push back at that, you can say, well, the Colts are close. They finished with more wins than us. The Bengals are close. Burrow goes down. Well, in Indy's case, Richardson goes down, a rookie QB.
Yep.
You're making it work with a backup. Bengals, Burrow goes down. They're making it work with a backup. Pitts, I'm not even going to include the playoff teams. You kind of feel like Tennessee, I would rather take Vrabel and co. over what we currently have.
Yep.
Although Vrabel's, future's, up in the air at this point. But Jacksonville, super, super disappointing, but I still kind of feel more confident in Doug Peterson than, what we currently have. And it's just strange, man. It's disappointing. It's frustrating, but at the same time, it's like, what is Douglas going to, come out there and do? Like we knew that he was going to give pretty vague answers and just do like the coach speak that, all GMs pretty much, do.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, and they were tasked with rebuilding the Jets offense, getting the quarterback, getting the offensive line, and getting playmakers. And now we're going to spend this entire offseason and be like, you know what? We need a backup quarterback, 100%. We probably need 3 offensive linemen. We need 2 receivers, a tight end, and a running back. So you look at all the holes. It's like you can't say like the Jets are a piece or 2 away. They need a lot of pieces on offense to get this offense fixed. And then because I think you got to offset bad coaching, and that's the biggest problem there too. So, and it's really, really interesting. So we're not going to harp on it too much because we've done video after video just ripping this organization. Today kind of really solidified my anger with this. I'm like, all right. But then the other big story coming out of yesterday and today is the whole Bryce Huff thing, where every interview you see with Bryce Huff, and who's got 10 sacks, and I think he's been grossly underutilized this year. Last year, they play more in preseason games. They do in regular season games, which makes no sense to me. And now he's a guy on the rise. That's like, to me, he's like a building block on defense. And now he's going to head into free agency, and it looks like they're not going to re-sign him, dude. They're not going to tag him. They're not going to re-sign him because, A, they believe in Will McDonald. The other thing is he wants to play more. He's like, listen, yes, I want to get paid. I want to play a lot more than I'm playing now, and that's not the way Saleh handles things. So are you surprised how this all developed? Because I think we kind of both thought, you know what, the Jets will give him a pretty good offer, this and that. But then hearing Huff's approach, he's like, bro, I want to play and get paid. He's not
well, I think, not to be, not to be this guy, but I think if you listen to what Jets fans had to say this past offseason, early in the year, when Bryce Huff was doing his thing, and, like you mentioned, he was doing his thing last year, Jets fans were saying, pay him, sign him, get him under contract. So you don't have to worry about, the price tag continuing to go up as the season goes along. But If I put myself in Bryce Huff's shoes, I don't blame him at all.
Nope.
I would want to play more. If I'm young, I still feel like I could get better. I'm coming off the best season of my career. I'm playing in a limited role and I'm putting up great numbers,
Yep.
whether it's basic stuff like QB hits and sacks or like the highly, detailed metrics and whatnot. And he's doing well in both categories. I'm like, yeah, of course I want to get paid. I want a multi-year deal and I want to play more. I want to be like that edge that I'm in there making a difference. I'm one of the guys in the 4-3 defense. And if the Jets can't do that or they can't give me that opportunity, then, maybe there's another, opportunity somewhere else with another team.
Yep.
But I will say that I think because we have Will McDonald, it's not going to be as catastrophic losing Bryce if we don't, bring him back. I mean, you could always, I don't know if Bryce would agree to this, but if you're Douglas, you can maybe try to backload a deal, like give him a 3-year contract, a lot of money, but that the bulk of the money coming in at the back end of the contract. So maybe you can do something like that, or you can ask JFM to take a pay cut to help kind of boost into the Bryce Huff, essentially just swapping money around. But I think at the end of the day, when free agency starts, I got to take a look at the free agent defensive ends. I think Huff is going to be coveted. And by the way, he can play in a 3-4 or a 4-3. So it's not like he's just this, one-trick pony system player. I mean, he can go play for, any team that needs an edge rusher.
And that's the thing is, like, as Jet fans, we were proactive about it. Like, get him a deal. Like, before this season or after last season, like, dude, get him locked up because you want to have building blocks. You want to, like, Saleh loves to have pass rushers. Well, Carl Lawson's been a monumental disappointment. He's going to be gone. He was inactive half the season. And then you're going to lose Lawson, whatever. But then you're losing, Huff, too. Then you're down to Jermaine Johnson-McDonald. Like, you have from a plethora to now you're down to, like, one Jermaine Johnson injury away from, like, no, we need pass rushers again. So it's, man, I hate that kind of stuff, dude. Like, you want to have that young nucleus staying together, but it looks like he could be gone. And then you look at the rest of the defense, like,
Well, let me quickly jump in and ask you this. Let's say Huff asks for $15 million a year, right? Would you rather give Huff the $15 million or give that $15 million to an offensive lineman?
That's the problem. That's like, to me, it's like, that's
Tough.
like right now, you got to say, right now, you like, as a guy that wants to win now, we know how much we need help. We need on offense, dude. Like, if we can't protect Aaron Rodgers this season, we're going to be in a huge mess. Then you need a receiver too. Like, everybody wants to get T. Higgins and all, like you want to give him the money, but if you're going to give me the choice of saying, hey, do you want Huff for a bona fide left tackle? I got to go left tackle, unfortunately. That's the problem.
Yeah, and it's like, man, I wish we had 70 mil in space. And I mean, I know you can, throw like you can maneuver the cap and pay cuts and restructures and all these different things, but it's a risky game. I think the Jets are going to be paying like $20 million in dead money next season because of all the restructures that they did this past offseason. So it's tough. I want to see Bryce Huff back. I think the only way it makes sense financially for the Jets to, boom, go get the number 2 wide receiver, get improvements on the offensive line. I mean, even if you don't give one offensive lineman like 15 mil a year, you can get 2 for like 7 mil a year. I mean, veteran left tackles that are solid are going for like 1 year, 3 mil, 1 year, 4 mil. It's not like out of the ordinary, like a Donovan Smith, for example. So, if Huff ends up walking, it would suck. I love Bryce Huff. I thought, whenever you can look at an undrafted free agent and just kind of see his rise, it's always so much fun. I felt the same way about Robbie Anderson, when he was here. But if he does leave, at least the Jets do have guys in place to step in, where we're like, okay, we can lose a really, really good edge rusher, but we have 2 really good starters. And even behind them, it's like Michael Clemens, John Franklin Myers can bounce out to the outside. And it's also not to say that we can't go out and add, a piece in the draft or like a cheaper free agent deal, because at the end of the day, Bryce Huff was an undrafted free agent. It's not like we are completely screwed and we do not know how to develop or find talent at the end.
No, that's a fair point. I just you just see like that. I guess we were spoiled finally having pass rushers where you don't want to start losing them now, especially when it's homegrown. Like, you really watch them grow as a Jet, and then it's like that whole taking care of your own. Like, they took care of Quinnen, which was awesome, but then it's like this is the kind of guy you want to keep around. And then it's just, to me, it was more concerning. It was the reason why he doesn't want to stay is because of the coaching staff and the way they handle him, which kind of just, I guess I'm so anti-Salah right now. It's kind of like annoying me even more. But
Mhm.
you look even like on offense where you have a lot of decisions to make too, where it's like, what do you do with Tomlinson? What do you do with Becton? Like the offensive line as a whole is going to be really interesting to see how they handle them because it's been a huge problem. And if you release Tomlinson, you're creating another hole for yourself, which is a problem. So I'm really curious to see how they handle. I think the one interesting thing was Sal talking about AVT today, where it was like they want to give him one spot, you stay at that spot, and that's it to try to keep him just, be the master of one instead of trying to be the, jack of all trades. But I mean, how would you handle Tomlinson? Because Tomlinson's like the only guy, he may not have played great, but he played every game. Do you like that stability or like, what do you do with Tomlinson?
Well, the problem with Tomlinson is that he's owed 18 million, I believe, which is a ton. So if the Jets want to move off, I believe it's a $10 million. It's either an
Yep.
8 or a $10 million
Like
dead
eight,
cap
yeah.
hit.
Yep.
So, either way, you're going to be eating some money. But I mean, it's so tough, man, because like on one hand, he does play.
Yep.
And when we look at the Jets offensive line, we need guys who can play. But it's like 18 mil for somebody who's not playing like average like looking like an average left guard is a tough pill to swallow.
Yep.
So again, I guess like theoretically speaking, if you want to move money around, you can release Laken Tomlinson and use that money to go get maybe like 2 left guards.
Mm-hmm.
But then if that's the route you want to go down, your scouting has to be like on point. Like you have to know exactly who, like for a baseball reference, like, the Tampa Bay Rays,
Mm-hmm.
they have all these young star
Yep.
players, but they know they can't afford to re-sign them to, 5, 6, 7, 8 year deals.
Yeah.
So when it gets to be around that contract year or maybe the year prior,
Yep.
they end up having to flip them and they
Yep.
get a bunch of prospects back in return, but they're pretty careful on who they get back in return because it's like, we need guys who fit what we want to do and they're really, really good at it. So they constantly have this young pipeline of players coming up and coming up. But if that, if that, aspect of the organization sucks and you can't develop, or sorry, you can't identify who would be
Yep.
a fit, then you're screwed because then it's like you're kind of walking blind,
Yeah.
throwing money and stuff like that. I like Lakin. I just feel like 18 million is a ton of money for what the production that we're currently getting.
Yep. No, I agree.
It's just a little too much in my opinion.
So now, what do you think about Becton? Because I think Becton had you give him credit for coming back. Hasn't played in 2 years. He played a lot this year. He didn't play well. He struggled towards the end, and I think it could be a lot of things. Playing through injuries, doing whatever else. But I think he struggled, and it's like, all right, free agent. He's gonna want to test the market. I kind of think his days are numbered here. I don't think because can you honestly like what kind of contract you can give him, dude? You can give him like a 1-year prove it deal. Like you can't give him anything long term. You're not gonna give him big money because he hasn't played to the level of his rookie year again, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think you just have to, unless he wants to come back for cheap.
Yeah.
It's just because at the end of the day, in my opinion, we're looking for 2 things. Number 1, production. Are you good? So
Yep.
that's one big thing. You have to be in my opinion, an above average offensive line. That's the mindset that I would have if I'm Douglas this
100%.
offseason. We got free agency, we got trades, we got the draft. We got to figure it out.
Yep.
We have Aaron Rodgers in house. We must protect him. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's inexcusable if we can't figure it out. So that's the first checkpoint. You got to be above average. And then number 2, I mean, man, now that I'm thinking about it, we need a starting left tackle, potentially starting left guard.
Yep.
We have AVT coming back, but he's coming back from an Achilles injury. We're going to need a starting right tackle. We're going to need backup tackles and at least one backup guard and potentially one backup center because McGovern was only brought in on a 1-year contract.
Yep.
Oh, man, we have a lot of work that we got to – I mean, I'll let you go, like, kind of dive into the offensive line, but – man,
That's the
now that I'm
concern, man.
really kind of thinking about like literally names on paper, how many acquisitions have to happen to just get a solid functioning offensive line where it's not complete pandemonium if one guy goes down. I like the mindset from Saleh. Like we got to just play AVT at one position.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't like how it's kind of being framed like, oh, well, he keeps moving around. He keeps moving around. He's moving around because he's amazing.
Yep.
He can produce in the running game on the left side, pass pro, right side, whatever you want him to do, he can step in and do it. Uh, Here's an interesting idea, though. We could potentially help alleviate some of the offensive line problems because it's not like there's tons of offensive linemen in free agency, and obviously the Jets are picking 10th overall. You could move AVT to left tackle. You
Yep.
can go out and draft a right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have your two starting tackles. You got Carter Warren on the bench,
Yep.
and then from there, Tittman's going to start at center.
Yep.
Just jury's still out on Laken Tomlinson, whatever the Jets want to do there. So now all of a sudden you have a big hole at right guard
Mm-hmm.
and backup right tackle,
Yep.
or however they view Warren. Another backup tackle,
Yep.
and a couple of backup depth pieces on the O line. If you're not paying big left tackle money because we're just moving AVT over and we're drafting a rookie contract,
Yep.
at right tackle, you can, in my opinion, you could have some, a nice chunk of change to go out and get depth pieces or a starting right guard, not top of the market, but maybe, if you're just looking at starting right guards, if you can get maybe the 18th or the 15th ranked right guard on a cheaper contract. And all of a sudden you're looking at left tackle good, right tackle good, right guard good, center we're good with Tittman. Lakin, again, if he's here, at least he's playing. So maybe that would be a quick kind of fix to it as opposed to a complete teardown where we're trying to figure out where AVT goes and whatnot. But that's kind of where my mind's at right now when I look at just the landscape of offensive line and potential options out there.
Yeah, if you want to get the most bang for your buck, you have him at tackle because they're the most expensive ones. And he's shown the athletic ability to do that. But you put him there and say, okay, you're a left tackle, sit there, blossom, hopefully coach him up, which is something that my biggest concern of all of this. But that probably makes the most sense too, because any free agent left tackle or tackle is going to get huge money, dude, because everybody's looking for him. So if you have in-house candidates, you use them first. Carter Warren, I think, still is a project. Max Mitchell is not. I don't think he's all that good. So it's like if you can put AVT at left, you go try to find a right one, maybe even draft a right tackle, like you said, it's perfect. You have Tittman, you have comfortable. Then it's like, all right, if you have Tittman, you have AVT, maybe you can bring back Tomlinson for 1 year, maybe try to restructure him or something. If you're trying to as a band-aid, all right, stopgap measure. Hopefully we can draft a guard later on and hope they grow, something like that. That's not a bad idea. But then the question I have for you is, if you're fixing your offensive line, do you think backup running back, and they tried it with Dalvin Cook, it didn't work, but is backup running back, a legit number 2 running back, a priority for you?
It is. It's not the top priority. I think number 1 priority for me is offensive line.
Yep.
It's offensive line. Yes, we can talk about veteran backup quarterback, but that's easy, right? Tyrod Taylor, Gardner Minshew, Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, Jacoby Brissett. Take your pick. There's going to be plenty of them. Andy Dalton, whoever you want. You 1 year, $3 million, 1 year, $4 million. You can go out and sign a veteran backup on day 1 of free agency, no problem. But offensive line is tricky, right? Because scheme fit and age and how much do they want, positional fit, positional versatility. What's the plan for these guys going to be? But no, to answer your question, running back for sure is up there because I love Brees. We haven't really seen a bunch of Izzy. I mean, I would be fine maybe drafting one in rounds. I mean, we have 2 4th-round picks, so maybe one of those or a 5th rounder, or you can always just, claim somebody, like a waiver, pickup or something like that. It's tough because, you got to think Rodgers is going to be here and he's going to delegate. And I just don't know if Douglas, I mean, I guess maybe because it seems like all we're doing is bringing over Packers, but AJ Dillon or if Aaron Jones gets released or something like that, could the Jets go down that path? But, if that's the case, do they have to hand out a lot of cash to bring, one of those guys in?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a need, man. And I love Brees, but I think you need to have that 1 and 1A kind of running back to get your offense just to stay consistent. No big setbacks, no big drop off when Brees is out. But then the question is, I agree with you. Offensive line is a priority. Backup quarterback, a huge priority. But then in terms of money spent, I'm almost in opinion you got to spend some pretty good money on wide receiver because you have Garrett Wilson, should be primed for a big year. He was primed this year. Next year he should really take off. Alan Lazard, monumental disappointment. Then you have Gibson, which everybody loves. I think he's, I guess, undrafted guy, and Brownlee. They're showing you potential, but they have a long way to go, man. And it's like you need proven route runners, you need good guys, good hands, reliable, consistent. How much money are you spending at wide receiver? Because I know everybody's saying the same names. Mike Evans, I'm sure is a great guy. Would love to, love to get him. He may stay in Tampa, dude, because they're having success down there. Retire a buck. T. Higgins is gonna be the biggest name on the market. The Chiefs need wide receiver help. Like you're going to be competing for these guys. So, like, how much money would you spend at wide receiver?
The problem, dude. Okay, so the problem with T. Higgins is he's going to command a humongous contract.
Yep.
And it's not to say that the Jets can't make it work, but T. Higgins, in my opinion, somebody who has great size, great hands, ultra productive. He's been the Robin to the Jamar Chase Batman.
Yep.
I think he wants to. I mean, obviously the Bengals want to have him back, but there's a reason why he's going to probably leave.
Yep.
Because he wants to be a number one wide receiver and wants to get paid like a number one wide receiver, and he has the potential to be one. Mm-hmm. So, you start looking across the NFL, it's like T. Higgins can step into Kansas City right now and be the number one wide receiver, no questions asked.
Yep.
You can say that with a bunch of different teams. So Higgins is kind of the guy, in my opinion, that is so like he's number one. He's the best free agent wide receiver, in my opinion. And then you got like the other guys who are still really, really good. Still guys who I think could come in and be the number two. I think Michael Pittman makes a lot of sense for the Jets. Not going to be as expensive as, a T. Higgins, potentially a Mike Evans, but somebody who's young can come in. He's been like a wide receiver too before, more of a possession type of guy. I think he'd be a really nice compliment to Garrett Wilson. He has, solid height at the position as well. I think Tyler Boyd makes a lot of sense.
Another guy,
a veteran. I mean, there's tons of wide receivers, man. Tons of wide receivers that are going to be hitting the market. But another like weird, I guess, curveball is we don't just need one on the outside. We also have to figure out what's happening at slot. Randall Cobb wasn't all that impressive, and we traded more. We cut Berrios last year. What do we do at slot receiver now? Is it just Gibson's role and that's it? Or do we try to bring in some competition? I don't know if slot receiver is going to be high up on the, team needs or I guess team priorities for Douglas. But I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Where do you stand with that?
I want to add two receivers, to be honest with you. Like, I want, like, if you're going to go back with Aaron Rodgers, I want, like, the most explosive offense we could possibly have. But you want to have, like, kind of young guys that can all grow together, like Garrett Wilson and player X for the next 4 years together, 3 years together, like, kind of, like, grow together. Like you said, like, Jamar Chase and Higgins, like that, like, year in and year out, they're playing together. They can feed off each other, and you do that. You want to find that partner for Garrett Wilson, and it's not Lazard. I mean, I'd be shocked if it was. But then the other question is, so you got, you want to get a backup running back, you want to get your receivers. The tight end group is interesting because I like Ruckert, but he gets banged up a lot. He's still like a work in progress. Conklin showed really good things, right? You like him. Like, you think with a Aaron Rodgers offense, he could probably put up even better numbers. Is that a position of need, though? Like, everybody keeps saying the 10th pick in the draft. Could the Jets even think about going tight end there? Because that could be a focal part of your offense. If you can't spend big on T. Higgins or you don't get Mike Evans or whatever else, do you compensate for that by going tight end, making that like similar to like a what the hell's that guy's name? Kyle Pitts, a guy like that, or like you see Laporte at the Lions having all kinds of success. Do the Jets maybe say, hey, we'll pivot here and make the tight end like our threat?
So it's tough because Brock Bowers is a dominant player, man. He is freaking great. So I feel like if there wasn't really a like a, I don't want to use the word generational, but like a top tight end prospect coming out, he wouldn't really be so focused on the position. But because Bowers is so good, that's why he's being talked about. The problem, though, is like Hackett's offense. I think I think it's pretty fair to say that Hackett's not going to be deviating away from what he does and what he knows. So if tight end, having like a dominant tight end, whether it's like a Kelsey in Kansas City, like Hawkinson in Minnesota, like if that's not like the first or second option in his mind, I just can't see the Jets going down that route.
Yeah.
Now, I think in a perfect world, your offensive coordinator should say, "Oh, we have a fantastic tight end prospect here. If he's that much better than everybody else, we will make it work." I will say this though. Joe Douglas considered Michael Mayer in the first round
Yep.
last year. Wasn't really a position of need. Mayer ends up going in round 2. Douglas
Mhm.
was talking about taking him at 15.
Yep.
So Bowers is a better prospect than Mayer.
Yep.
That does come into question, in my opinion.
No,
What will
100%. 100%, dude. That's kind of where I was going, especially when Douglas said today he's all about best player available in the draft. That's his mindset. Like, you don't look at this is a need, this is the best guy on the board. And to me, it's like you would hope that Hackett would adjust his offense, or even Rodgers would say, listen, man, I can make plays with this kid. Like, we can do special things with this kid, especially with Garrett Wilson on the inside and Brees Hall coming out of the backfield. You can mold your offense.
Right, and that's kind of what the Bills did with Dalton Kincaid. They had a good one in Dawson Knox,
Yep.
and they had the number 1 receiver in Stephon Diggs, but like that number 2 receiver, Gabe Davis, Shakir, like you're looking across the wide receiver room, and you're like, none of these guys are jumping out at you like somebody who's legitimately going to take pressure off of Allen, take pressure off of Diggs, but they're going to get passes thrown their way because the quarterback is really good.
Yep.
They're going to have opportunities. But the Bills were like, okay, Dalton Kincaid, the number 1 tight end on the board, he's here late round 1. We can get him in. And yes, of course, he's going to be tight end, but in a lot of, plays and concepts and whatnot, he's going to be either the number 1 or number 2 option in that given play. So maybe the Jets can go down something like that. But my question is, is Hackett creative enough to figure something like that out? And then all of a sudden, what happens to Conklin's role on the team? Are you going to take like a contract like that and just make him like guarantee the number 2 tight end to where he's not really seeing much action? I guess you could always run 2 tight end sets, but from there, it's like, again, I just think it comes back to what does Hackett and Rodgers, what do these guys want to accomplish on the offense side of the football? I mean, Rodgers talked about it today, actually, like it's not really like a scheme problem or anything like that. So it's tough. I don't think, if the Jets were to get Bowers, we're a better football team.
100%.
Easily. And like Bowers is the type of guy to where if he hits the NFL, he's going to be regarded as one of the best tight ends in football. And he probably hasn't, it's going to be before he plays a game. So he's like that, like talked about that highly. But yeah, so I guess the point is maybe they could look at the situation like, hey, we got a great back in Brees Hall. We got some veterans at tight end to help Bowers along the way. Exactly. Garrett Wilson is the number 1 wideout, and then all of a sudden Bowers is like the number 2, like theoretical option within a lot of plays and concepts and whatnot.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. Because then you figure if Garrett Wilson, you have Brees Hall coming out of the backfield, then you could actually Lazard would actually be like your 3 or 4, probably your 4, and then it's like, you know what, for the money he's making, he's going to be here anyway. Then it's like you're not really relying on him, but you figure with Aaron Rodgers coming back, they're good friends. You're going to get something out of them next year, and you don't have to spend that marquee money at wide receiver because you've addressed your playmaker need through the draft. Only problem is if you go that route, you better find ways to upgrade your offensive line if you're not going offensive line in the first round. So it's like a lot of maneuvering. I'm just trying to figure out ways to manipulate your cap space to get as many playmakers as possible. But that kind of comes into play a little bit, seems like.
Yeah, no, 100%. And like, I don't want to, go down this rabbit hole too far, but another positive in taking Bowers is the fact that let's just say for whatever reason, Saleh doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
And Rodgers is up there in age. If you're a new head coach coming in the building, just like the Atlanta Falcons, you can literally sell your offensive pieces. We have one of the best running backs in football who's on a rookie deal, one of the best wide receivers in football on a rookie deal. We have one of the best tight ends, I guess at this point, tight end prospects in the NFL on a rookie deal. One of the best offensive linemen on a rookie deal in Elijah Vera Tucker. Like those are 4 huge pieces that if you're an offensive mind, let's just say, you're like, yeah, I can make it work with Brees and Garrett and Bowers, and I get an anchor on the offensive line, and none of these guys are on big deals. That I do think that comes into play, like Atlanta with Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Bijan Robinson. It's like figure out the quarterback position, boom, I can take this thing off. But if you're like Ben Johnson looking at the Falcons saying like, I can make stuff work with these guys. Like I can really turn Pitts into, a great tight end in football. We have a primary guy on the outside and, dynamic running back. So I think that could come into play. But again, I'm focused on 2024, not 2025.
No, but that's the whole point, though, is that you have an offense that's good for next year and the years to come. Like, you want Brees and Garrett Wilson to have teammates that they all grow together. Like, going back to the Cowboys with the triplets, like, you have these, or even like the Bengals all growing together. Like, you see them all doing that. You want to have the same thing. Like, you have like Bills, Josh Allen and Diggs and all these guys. Like, you need to have that young core. And then, like you said, if Solid doesn't work out, you have a plug and play offense. Like, all right, we already have our playmakers. We're probably gonna need a quarterback, but get the guy and you can run it out there. So it's interesting, man. Like, this offseason is so fascinating how they're going to, obviously you got to accommodate Aaron Rodgers' needs. That's going to be big, but not a lot of cap space, but you have a lot of needs because it's a win now year. Like, and you want to make smart moves. You don't want to have Band-Aid players making a lot of money. You want to have guys that are still young heading into the prime making decent money. That's how you kind of, sustainable success.
Yeah, and like another interesting kind of avenue, I guess we can kind of take it is, and it's funny because it's January 8th, we're like, I don't mean to be harping on the draft this much, but what about a potential, because you talked about adding playmakers, loading this football team up. What about, and of course, it takes two to tango, but a potential trade down where we move back from 10 down to, mid first round, maybe mid to late first round, like early 20s for a team that really wants a quarterback. And all of a sudden we can recoup a second. So we're now getting a first rounder, a second rounder. We have the third, and then the 2 fourths. Maybe we get a futures pick because we're not just going to get one second round pick if we move all the way back from 10 to whatever, 21. So, or maybe even a future first round pick. You know what I mean? So maybe that could be something to explore as well. Because there's a lot of good quarterbacks in this class. And I do feel like there's going to be a team like Minnesota that is missing out on the playoffs, but they're not bad enough to have that top. Where actually, you know what? Where are they at? I think they're 11.
Minnesota, are they?
I think they might be 11. So
I forget.
Yeah, but the bottom line is Minnesota could potentially move up. I think there's a couple of teams in that range that, I know Pittsburgh's in the playoffs, but they're rolling with Rudolph. Is there really a lot of belief in him?
Nope.
Kenny Pickett, yeah, I know he got hurt, missing time, but I mean, I guess it's debatable. Again, it's only January here, but it's just something to kind of think about.
No, 100%, man. Especially like if you have like your top 2 tackles are gone, like just say you're gone. Like, you know what? If you could trade back and recoup that second rounder, which you desperately need anyway, and say you get Bowers later on at 16 or some, whatever, 17, and then you get a second round pick, you get your like a running back that's still there or whatever. You're finding ways. Like, I just think you got to like stockpile this offense, man. You really have to, because this is it. You maybe have a 2-year window at Rodgers, may only be 1. You want to be as explosive as humanly possible. And you got to also offset for injuries too. Like, you can't be so arrogant to say, because like right now, if Garrett Wilson goes down, you're completely screwed at wide receiver. You got nothing. You want to kind of avoid that, right? Have like your kind of insurance policy. If Conklin goes down, you have some faith in Ruckert, but you got to have like your contingency plans. Now, I think the Jets probably learned that this year, but it's something they got to put a priority on it.
Yeah, and like another thing too, it's like you're never going to have a perfect team where you're like, okay, we got a starting lineup, and then behind those guys we have another starting lineup.
Right.
I mean, look at the Chiefs this year with wide receiver. They just lost too many guys, and they just didn't replenish the roster. Like if Diggs goes down for Buffalo, I guess maybe not this year's the best example if Chase goes down for Cincinnati, but I mean, you kind of get the.
Yeah, but you also look at the Rams. Look at the value the Rams get in the later rounds, like their 5th round.
The Rams are operating at like a totally different level.
But that's the goal, though, right? But like, and that's the one thing where it's like, as Jet fans, we've been so disappointed through the draft. We're kind of accustomed to it. Be like, oh, you know what? I don't have any faith picking at 18th. I want to have the 10th pick. Like the whole tank this game so we can get a top 6 pick because we're so scared of Joe Douglas at 10. At some point, we want to expect better, where Joe Douglas has to get better value in the later rounds. Like getting Bryce Huff undrafted free agent is great, and Gibson and Brownlee, that's awesome, but you need more value, dude. A lot of these guys aren't here anymore. Like, look at this year's draft class. They're all hurt, right? None of these guys. Zaire Barnes didn't play. Converse didn't play. None of those guys played.
Yeah, like the first draft class too, with like Becton and Ashton Davis and James Morgan, like that whole class, like it didn't really.
Nope.
We don't really have many.
You need more value, dude. You need more value in those later rounds where those guys contribute. Not 3 years from now, you get little pieces this year, next year, and that's how you can replace your free agents. So it's gonna be interesting, man. Like I'm curious to see how they approach free agency. I'm curious what the recruiting factor is for Aaron Rodgers. Do guys actually even want to play them still? Like what's the Jets mystique, man? Do people actually want to come play for the Jets, or is this year kind of tarnished everybody where you saw Rodgers got hurt, he's a year older, Jets aren't winning. What's the league-wide perception of this team right now?
Yeah, I mean it's tough. It's tough because we had guys passing on the Jets last year.
Mm-hmm.
This was before Hackett's nightmare season. This was before the Rodgers injury and whatever else. So
especially when you hear Garrett Wilson's comments about not adjusting the offense and stuff like that. That's when you're seeing Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall so frustrated. It's like, man, like how much does that play into it?
yeah,
And Dalvin Cook leaving, not even being used. You know what I mean?
and McCole Hardman too. And I know it's not the biggest deal in the world, right? But if you're Michael Pittman, I would ask, if the Jets approach you in free agency, like, well, hey, you guys signed Hardman last year and it didn't work out. Why didn't it work out?
Yep.
I'm a wide receiver too. I'm going to be potentially signing with you guys too. I'm curious on why Hardman didn't work. Lazard didn't really work. I don't want to follow that path.
Yep.
I need some answers here.
Elijah Moore, Denzel Mims. Like there's a history of receivers not working out here, but it's a fair question. Like that's like as fans, we get excited, like, oh, we're gonna have money, Aaron Rodgers, guys are gonna want to come here. That wasn't the case last year, but we can say last year it wasn't the case because he wasn't actually here. It took forever to get the trade to go through. We thought it'd be done before the draft. It wasn't. So maybe that was the uncertainty. Even Lazard said he was texting Rodgers, like, when you getting this done, dude? Like, come play here. So maybe that was part of it. I'm not sure. But I just think having a year like they had so disappointing, and that everybody's on a hot seat. Like even Aaron Rodgers said it today himself. He's like, if I don't play well, I may not be back next year because they may turn the page on everybody. So I don't know. And then like situations like that, do you pay like that quote unquote Jets tax where it's like, all right, you're not sure if you want to come here. We'll pay you a little bit more than everybody else just to get you in the building. Do you want to take that approach?
Personally, no, but I think that might be for some guys, that might be what it takes to get them in the building,
Yep.
because of the Jets' track record of constantly missing the playoffs and finishing beneath 500.
Yep.
It'd be one thing if, we hear it all the time, like Dalvin Cook, right? Release a player to go chase a ring. What does that mean? He's going to go sign with a 1 seed, a 2 seed, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Bills, somebody like Leonard Fournette.
Yep.
Yeah, he just signed with Buffalo. Where did Dalvin Cook go? Baltimore. So it's like Darius Leonard, Eagles.
Yep.
When can we get into that upper echelon of group of teams where it's like, hey, it's week 14, week 13, and a player is getting cut from a bad team, and boom, he's signing with the Jets on a cheap contract. He's going to really boost the squad, fresh legs, whatever the case is, veteran leadership to make a playoff run. Like when we get into that area, we're going to be, we're going to be in a great position. But as of right now, we're still talking about potentially overpaying guys to just get them here, which is pretty unfortunate.
Bro, we got Roger Saffold. What are you talking about? You can't make it up.
Just another.
I just had to bust your chops one more time.
That's dude, it's again. I'm past 2023. My bad. I cranked the light all the way up here. I'm totally past 2023. I'm just trying to stay optimistic about 2024, the off season.
Well, now it's about finding solutions, dude. It's like today was the last day of like, all right, you decompress, you hear Saleh and Douglas talk. You're like, whatever, I'm over it now. They made mistakes. They did admit to half of them. They're not making any changes. So now it's like, how many different ways can we find to improve this team? Free agency, draft, restructure contracts, all that stuff. So that's like going forward. It's what we're going to be doing. Like now it's like, all right, now we all move forward and figure out. First, you got to react to what moves they make, like who they're going to cut. So then I guess one of my last questions for you is, do you see any surprise cuts coming? Like something that's going to catch us out of the dark? Like, wow, I didn't see that one coming.
Surprise cuts? Probably not, because again, we just disappointed across the board.
Yep.
Maybe not like specifically like corner, right? Or like at hand picking certain positions, linebacker. But if the Jets part ways with like Laken Tomlinson, I think that's going to catch a lot, like open some eyes, like whoa, like now we need a left guard, but we're saving a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
but again, at this point, I don't see the Jets like unless it's just totally unrealistic. I don't see the Jets like having a surprising cut.
Nope.
I hope we keep Mosley. I hope we keep
Yeah.
some of these like I hope we bring back Quentin Jefferson and Solomon Thomas and Al Woods and stuff like that. Like I want the veterans in the in house, but
Yeah, Morstead and
Lazard
Zerline.
you can't release.
No, nope. But yeah, Morstead, Zerline, Justin Hardy, you bring them back like
Yeah.
special teams guys. Irv Charles is coming on in special teams. But yeah, I agree. I don't think I think it's gonna be more about the moves they're making instead of the ones that they're cutting guys. I don't think they're gonna make any big splash. Like I think Uzama will probably be gone. He's not coming back. Jordan Whitehead's kind of interesting because you have Chuck Clark coming back. Tony Adams has emerged, dude. Tony Adams is actually becoming a playmaker back there. Does Jordan Whitehead's kind of a guy, like, I guess he restructured this year to stay here. Is he a guy you kind of like, did he move on from him, do you think?
I think maybe because at the end of the day, it's like the defense I think will be fine with whatever. I mean, Ashton Davis really came onto the scene this season, so it's like whatever. I think like if Joe Douglas is looking at the Jets, like I got to get this team to the playoffs. I might cut my losses at safety and not bring back Jordan Whitehead, who's not like one of the top like elite safeties in football. Try to fill his role there, hope for the best at safety, but then use that money and invest at right tackle or wide receiver 2 or whatever it is.
No, I completely agree. I think your pass rush can hide a lot of things. You go with the youth moving back there. Davis is actually playing. Ashton Davis is actually playing pretty well. I think I cut him like 3 times over the last couple of years because I hate him so much, and he's coming on doing really well. So then I guess what we could do before we wrap this up, because I can't believe it's almost been an hour. We got to get your playoff predictions, man, because now we got wild card weekend coming up here, which is exciting. Like watching the Bills Dolphins last night was awesome too, because of all like the drama with Tua melting and Josh Allen throwing interceptions. So what are your picks, man? What do you think's going to happen?
So what do I think is going to happen, or what? Actually, I'll do both. Right?
Okay.
We'll go. What do you want to do? Go through all the playoff?
But why not? Let's do it.
All right. So I'll just go like first ones that come to mind. So Eagles, Tampa. I think Philly's going to win, but I want Tampa to win.
Me too.
That's I think the last game. Ironically enough, Cleveland, Baltimore. I guess we'll do NFC first. I think Dallas will beat Green Bay, but I want Green Bay over Dallas.
Yep.
What's the last NFC game? Rams, Detroit.
Yep.
I want Detroit. I think Detroit's going to win, but I would not. That one's probably the toughest one on the list. AFC, I want Cleveland, and I think Cleveland's going to win. Yep. I think they're going to beat Houston. Yep. I want Buffalo to beat Pittsburgh. I think Buffalo will beat Pittsburgh. And then Miami, Kansas City is tough. I want Kansas City. But I'm just not like Fangio going up against Mahomes is always such a good matchup. And I just don't know if the Chiefs have enough wide receiver depth to go up against like a Dolphins defense with like a Jalen Ramsey. And yes, they're banged up with, Chubb and whatnot, but I think that game is going to come literally right down to the last drive. And it's going to be either Mahomes coming back or Tua coming back or something like that. The defense coming up with a huge play, just kind of like how last night was. But I think that's all of them for me.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs are going to win that game. I think the Dolphins are falling apart, man. And it's going to be like a night game, probably with 0 degrees there. The environment. I think the Dolphins don't play as well on the road either. I think they're kind of like in that free fall. I'm with you with the Eagles, man. I'm shocked the Eagles are where they are right now. They are completely, the wheels are falling off 1,000%. I think it'd be awesome just to see the Bucs win, just to see the Eagle fans freak out because now they want to fire Sirianni. I'm like, dude, you're at the Super Bowl last year. Like, what do you think? This is insane.
But I agree. Saw Bulls too.
Yeah, like I'm kind of rooting for the Browns. I just think it'd be fun to watch them make a run with Flacco, like because like their fan base has been beaten like ours, dude. They haven't won it forever, and they're finally getting home playoff games, and they're enjoying the playoff ride. So I'm rooting for them as well. But I agree with your picks. Like I think Dallas can probably put it on the Packers. I think this Dallas at home's tough to beat.
Well, what's interesting is so Cleveland's the wild card team, despite them having 11 wins.
Yep.
So Flacco on the road, but the thing is like that Browns team, like they're built to win on the road.
100%.
So I think if I had to pick, I would probably say like my pick before the season was Eagles Bills was the Super Bowl. I guess I'll stick with that. But the teams that I want to see, Detroit and Cleveland.
Yeah, I think the 49ers, man, especially the way the NFC is kind of falling out now. Like the Rams are intriguing, man, because they're like that team that they got a lot of they're well coached, they're explosive, and they have a lot of experience, The Rams are interesting. I'm not sure how the Lions are going to handle it, but I'm thinking 49ers, Bills. I think the Bills are going to make a run. I don't know why. I just had that weird feeling. They're just, they won, 5 in a row now, I think it is.
Yeah.
So we'll
Yo,
see.
quick breaking news.
Uh-oh.
It's looking like the Jags fired their entire defensive staff.
No way.
Yeah.
It's not their fault. It's not their fault Trevor Lawrence didn't get the touchdown on the 1 yard line. Right. But doesn't that interesting how many teams that and Jets had success this year are making changes and the Jets are staying status quo.
Yeah, man, it'll be, dude. It's on one hand, you're kind of envious because like you love being in like the coaching like
Yep.
circles and whatnot, like trying to figure out who's interviewing where. Um, man, like there's so many openings and stuff like that. But like coordinator position openings are going to be interesting too. Like who takes over the Giants job?
Yeah.
Like if I'm Doug Peterson, I'm calling Wink Martindale
100%.
literally tonight, getting Martindale in the building. It's fun to kind of track all this stuff. Like John Gruden, I read a rumor I think before we kick this off that there's some interest with bringing him on the offensive staff with the Saints to like reunite him with Derek Carr.
Yep.
Tons of crazy stuff like that. But yeah, it should be interesting, man.
Well, the other one too is Antonio Pierce with the Raiders. I think Antonio Pierce, he deserves that, dude.
That job. They need to give him the job.
They have to, because they blew it with what's his face, Bisaccia. Remember when he filled in? They were playing hard for him too. He should have got the job. But Antonio Pierce, they've rallied around him. They're playing good football. They need help at quarterback, but he's got to get that job, dude. He has to.
Dude, I love Pierce, man. He's a great leader. Players love him. I mean, Max Crosby's, talking about him, and Devontae Adams is talking. Like everybody's pounding on the table, like keep him, like like bring him back. They got the fans chanting his name. He's had some big wins too. Yeah. I mean, they blew out the Jets. They had a win in Kansas City. Dropped whatever it was, 60 something against the Chargers. Yeah. Obviously, they won yesterday. Like I love Antonio Pierce. I think he kind of reminds me of Dan Campbell a little bit.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, former player, gets it, rah type of guy, but at the same time, not too crazy where he doesn't know what's going on. And players are like, man, this guy's kind of a clown.
No, he's hard-nosed. He's passionate. He's emotional. The players kind of resonates with the players. The interesting guy for me is Mike Vrabel, who I like a lot, probably more than I should. But I like the way he handles his team. I like he kind of reminds me, like Pierce kind of reminds me of him a little bit. If Vrabel gets fired, which I guess as of today, he's still it's still undecided. Where does he go, to New England, I guess? Or if Belichick leaves? I mean, Vrabel's going to be a hot candidate, wouldn't you think?
Dude, I think Vrabel's one of the better coaches in football. Yeah. Whether he gets fired or not. Like, I would love Mike Vrabel on the Jets. Like, he's my type of guy, like old school defense, toughness, blue collar team, right? Like, we're going to, really emphasis toughness and just physicality and running the football, trench play, offensive line, defensive line, not so much like star power, throwing 40, 50 times a game or anything like that. I just love his style of, it's just like it just kind of reminds me of the football that I kind of grew up with, but like I like still play that brand.
Like, I like that tone setter kind of coach, like Tomlin, Vrabel, where it's hard-nosed, physical. Like, when you play them, that it's going to be one of those games where you got to buckle up. And that's the kind of like almost back when the Rex Ryan was a Jets coach, where it's like like it's going to be a tenacious physical game. I wish the Jets kind of get more back to that mindset instead of this cliches and slogans in our T-shirt kind of stuff,
Yeah, I mean, dude, you like, for me, you always want to be the team to where other teams look at the schedule and be like, damn, we got the Jets this week. We might win, but we're gonna like leave like bloody and beaten because they're gonna fight from the start to finish, tooth and nail. They're gonna be so physical, so tough, and so well coached so well to where it's just like a well-oiled machine. Like, that's why I was so surprised. I mean, I know like personalities and stuff like that probably get involved with Daboll and Martindale, but man, that Giants defense was one of the in my opinion, one of the most fun units to watch in the entire NFL.
I love coordinators like that, dude. I like the way like the blitz heavy and you get crazy and you get exotic schemes and they're well coached. I think it's just egos, man. It's two big personalities where they're kind of like, all right, this isn't going to work here now, which is unfortunate. But like Martindale's got to be high on a lot of lists, though, dude. He won't be unemployed long. I doubt that.
Yeah, man. I'm trying to think. Or like, I mean, Washington, they fired Rivera. Yep. I don't think he's probably going to coach again.
Nope.
Staley's, that whole staff, Kellen Moore, everybody's, gone there.
Yep.
Trying to think, what happens in New England. Like Gerard Mayo is an interesting name too.
Yeah.
'Cause he
Yeah.
was getting some head coaching looks before
Yep.
or last offseason. So
Yep.
yeah, no, it's going to be interesting.
I can't wait, man. It's gonna be fun off season. Like I'm done like dealing with all the Jets negative stuff. Like, all right, now it's about just finding answers, and we can do like on these shows, dude. The next couple of weeks, we can do like playoff stuff too, talk about the games and stuff too, because
Yeah, for sure.
a lot of it, we're gonna say, okay, how do these teams find success? Can the Jets replicate that in any way too? Like the Browns are finding ways to win with Flacco. There's a lot of good things they did. So
Mhm.
we'll see what happens.
For sure, man. Anything else that you want to add?
How the hell was this an hour and 6 minutes?
Dude, it literally felt like 20 minutes, man.
I just looked up. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Crazy, crazy stuff. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for us. Thanks so much for watching. Really, really appreciate it. Sorry about the 2023 not really working out for New York. Dude, it's also crazy that we did the pod every week or like since the beginning of the season. So we have the whole thing like that we can kind of go back and reflect on. But yeah, anyway, thanks so much for watching. And as always, go Jets.